Starting in a few minutes. In the meantime, please ensure that you are able to register at our registration table in the foyer. Second, please ensure that your phones or devices are on mute. Lastly, please be reminded that this event will be documented. If you do not wish to be captured or included, kindly inform any of our usherates. Thank you. Once again, good afternoon. We will be starting in a few minutes. In the meantime, please ensure that you were able to register at a registration table in the foyer. Second, please ensure that your phones or devices are on mute. Lastly, please be reminded that this event will be recorded. If you do not wish to be captured or included, kindly inform any of our usherates. If you have any further questions, kindly approach us, our usherates. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Hello. Pleasant afternoon to everyone. May I request everyone to please settle down. Thank you. So, for the singing of our national anthem, may I request everyone to please stand.
Noon pa man, malaki na ang naging bahagi ng mga kababaihan sa lipunang Pilipino. Kaisa sila sa marubdob na paghahangad ng kalayaan ng ating lahi. Kabilang sila sa paglinang ng ating makulay na sining at mayamang kultura. Kasapi sila sa pagtataguyod ng mga adhikain ng kapwa mamamayan at sa pagtugon sa mga pangangailangan ng lipunan. Katuwang sila sa pagtuklas sa mga larangan ng agham at medisina. Kapanalig sila sa pagpapairal ng batas, karapatan at katarungan para sa lahat. Kabahagi sila sa paglilingkod sa bayan at sa pagpapanatili ng demokrasyang Pilipino. Sa paglipas ng panahon, hindi nagmaliw ang kanilang pag-ibig sa ating inang bayan. Mga kababayan, ito ang alay ng mga kababaihang Pilipino para sa bayan. Tumayo po tayong lahat at sabay-sabay nating awitin ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, pero sa silanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hiniram, gulatan ng pag-ibig, sa manlulupi, di ka masisingil, sa lahat ng tulog, sa singil at sa langit mong babang, naginanang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng patawad mo'y tagumpay na nagliliglig, ang bituin at araw na kailan pa may madilig. Lupa ng araw ng 100% buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Ang higaya ng pag ay makakamit, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
You may now take your seat. Once again, good afternoon. I hope you're comfortable on your seat and doing well this afternoon. So I am Sophia Dasa and I will be your host for this afternoon's webinar, afternoon's forum. So welcome to the evolving geopolitics in the Indo-Pacific region, implications of diverse Indo-Pacific strategies for the Philippines and the regional order. Organized by the class of International Studies 216. I see we have an overwhelming representatives from various sectors, so may I acknowledge them one by one. So first we have representatives from Embassy of France, Embassy of the US, Embassy of British Embassy from the Armed Forces of the Philippines, Ateneo de Manila University, De La Salle University, Department of National Defense, Department of Foreign Affairs, Department of Trade and Industry, Far Eastern University, National University of Fairview, Miriam College, or yours truly, Muntinlupa Business High School, National Defense College of the Philippines, Lyceum of the Philippines, Office of the Muslim Affairs, Palawan State University Graduate School, Philippine Eye Research Institute National Institute, Philippine Navy, Philippine Space Agency, Polytechnic University of the Philippines, University of Manila, University of Santo Tomas, Truston International College, Waypoints Project Amador Research Services, and WR Numero Research. This forum was made possible by the International Studies Department and the Women's Alliance for Security and Peace. As we continue the 55th anniversary of the International Studies Department of Miriam College this IS month, we are honored to showcase our leadership through the new insights and about the gain from esteemed diplomats representing different embassies. This forum aims to unpack various Indo-Pacific strategies of France, UK, and the US, and analyze how these strategies and policies impact the national security for the Philippines and the wider Indo-Pacific region. And as we begin, it is my honor to call on the stage President of Miriam College, Ambassador Laura Lula Kimbao del Rosario, to share her welcoming remarks.
I asked Sophia to please remove my photo at the back. So whoever's in charge, really please delete that photo, okay? I feel so conscious speaking with my face at the background. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody, and I wish to welcome you all to Miriam College. First of all, I want to introduce the representatives from the embassies who will be sharing their views with us. We have, of course, Dr. John Groch from the U.S. Embassy. So, John, thank you. I'm glad you're able to make it. And, of course, Miss Kim Clark. I think it's your first time here also, right? Although your ambassador, Lauren Bofis, has been here. And together with her is Maryknoll or Miriam alumna. We have Carol Ann, okay, Reyes from the IS Department 2018? 17. Okay, and then of course we have Remy. Wow, this is long. Varine something. Okay, at least it's a long family name. I think it has 15 alphabets. It sounds like Varine, something like that. Yeah. Okay, and of course welcome to the others. I think I know some of you. I know someone from the Philippine Space Agency and 2 persons from the Foreign Service Institute. So the topic now, of course, is about the Indo-Pacific, and it looks like it's the most important topic of the day from whatever angle you're looking from. And every time there are discussions on the Indo-Pacific or on the Philippines or on the South China Sea, I always start with the context. And of course, the context is basically it's focused on China. So whenever at least from my point of view, every time I look at these issues, I look at what I call the concentric circles that define what is happening in the Indo-Pacific. So if you look at the Chinese mindset, you have to remember one core national interest. Number one, Taiwan is a core national interest to them. It's non-negotiable, meaning their unification with Taiwan. To them, it's just a matter of time. Number two, the second core value or core objective, they want the United States out of the Indo-Pacific. All right? They want it to be somehow a sphere of influence for the Chinese. And third, of course, they want to change the global order, meaning it should not be dictated by Western values, namely the US and the Europeans. So if the whole goal really is to change everything, to change the status quo, then we really should expect a lot of shaking around and a lot of movement. And crucial among these, I mean revolving around this, is the issue of the South China Sea and the 9, now 10 dash line that the Chinese want to establish as a de facto territorial limit that they want to impose on everybody. So if you look at this as a Chinese grand strategy, definitely there will be a lot of strategies, right? And for me, it's a little bit more complicated for the Philippines because of three reasons. Number one, when you think of the Taiwan national as China's national interest, the Philippines is deeply involved there because Taiwan and the Philippines are members of the first line of defense. Oh no, the first island chain. Sorry, the first island chain, because we're part of the line, the island chain that somehow where the Americans have established somehow their outposts, and where somehow that's guarding that area from North Korea, Japan, then the Philippines and Taiwan is right there in the middle. And people think that whatever will happen in Taiwan, the Philippines will really get involved. If you notice, if you're reading news, there is resistance about the EDCA site, or the Enhanced Defense EDCA, Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement sites in northern Luzon, because some people think that they are placed there because the Philippines is being prepared for an engagement in Taiwan. Second, when you look also at the Chinese grand strategy or others objective in the South China Sea, we are there again. Somehow we're always we're always seen as a block, of towards the plans of China. We have our own claims on the South China Sea, and therefore the 9 or 10 dash line that China is trying to establish will affect us. And therefore, right now, everything that you hear about in the news, whether it's on the Scarborough Shoal or on the Thomas Shoal, it's really about the SCS, or the South China Sea, where we are engaged in because our conflicting claims against the Chinese. And then if you talk about changing the status quo globally, changing the value system, allowing states to have stronger control and somehow minimizing human rights, and also changing the financial system so that it's not dollar denominated, and they also want other currencies, specifically Chinese, the yuan, to be part of it. And if you're thinking of putting forward the independence of other countries to express what they want in terms of political, economic priorities, which they said should be based on their own cultural and civilization background, that again is Chinese, and therefore we are there because we are very Western in our approach, in our own development plans, and even in our own cultural values. So in effect, the Philippines is somehow a thorn on the side of the Chinese, whenever it comes to these four, what I call concerns of China. I may repeat them: Taiwan; second, changing the global order; number 3, getting the U.S. out of the Asia-Pacific; and number 4, of course, the 10 dash line in the South China Sea. So with this in mind, I hope you'll be able to appreciate the presentations of the representatives from various embassies, which will focus on the various Indo-Pacific strategies. Okay, I thank you very much, and I wish to thank the International Studies Department with Dr. Mel Reyes as the chair, and of course Jonalyn Villasanta as the one. I think Jonalyn, you're representing the Women's Alliance, right, for Security and Peace, and she's a member of the faculty. Once again, welcome to Miriam College, and good afternoon.
Thank you, Ambassador. want to take this opportunity for a quick photo opportunity. So may I call on the photographers for this afternoon to come up on stage so that we can capture this image together with Ambassador and our speakers. So. Yes, we'll have another. The picture will be from here for the with the audience. May I request everyone to please stand? One. Okay. Thank you very much. And let's take a seat now. And thank you, Ambassador Laura, for reminding us of the significance of our topic this afternoon and to whom and to what issues should be aware of, and especially to our adversary, China. So at this point, we will now be moving on to our remarks from our speakers. So it is for our first speaker, with over a decade of extensive experience in diplomacy and international relations, he has held key various positions within the French government and diplomatic missions. Currently, he is currently serving as the deputy head of mission at the French Embassy in the Philippines. He previously served as the head of European Parliament Department at the French Permanent Representation to the European Union. Prior to these roles, he held significant positions, including head of Press and Communication Department at the French Embassy in India, and deputy press and communication advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Development. His expertise also extends to policy development, negotiation, budget analysis, and other among areas. May I call on stage the Deputy Head of Mission of the Embassy of France to the Philippines, His Excellency Remy Thihu-Davayan.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can listen to me quite well. Good afternoon, Ambassador. Thank you very much to the students of Miriam College to have invited France to this very exciting event. I'm very pleased also to join my colleague from UK, dear friend, my colleague from the US as well. So it's very good because actually we are three nations of the Security Council, three also major power in a way because we have the nuclear power. So I'm not going to say a lot about that, but it's a good sign that we are all together today to discuss this very important topic. Just to introduce briefly myself, so my name is Remy Thihu-Davayan. I'm a French diplomat with of course an Indian origin, which I will explain a bit because it has a link to the subject. France had colonies, but also territories, and it was the case in India. So my grandfather was French, but born in India. My father was French, but born in India. And after the independence, my grandfather thought that it was a good idea to create a sort of a family name, Indian, but very unique. And That's why my name is Tirutu Varian, which means Trinity for Tirutu, Trinity because we are Catholic, son of, and Ryan, my great-grandfather. So this is the origin of the name. So it's completely linked to my, of course, personal history, but also to the history of my country in this particular region. When we speak about the Indo-Pacific at the French Foreign Department, we always think about one date, which is 2018. Our strategy was really launched at this moment, which is quite new. It was launched by President Macron during the spring of 2018, when he went to Australia, basically to sign a deal, which then had some issues for submarines. And during this trip, he made a stop in Delhi, New Delhi, and I had the chance to be part of this trip. And he said at that time that it was time for France to launch an Indo-Pacific strategy. Why? Firstly, because we have 1 million of citizens to protect in this very vast region, which goes from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific. You may have seen that in the news we have some troubles also in our own territories in the Pacific. It's very difficult. We can face the pressure of some state actor. We have ambassador. You spoke about China, but also other players, Russia, Azerbaijan, that we are facing at the moment. So it's quite challenging. And the idea of this strategy was really to be more vocal on our way, our vision about this region. So basically, we think first that we need to protect and to raise awareness when it comes to international law. That's why we have been always supportive, like our colleagues from US and UK, to the Philippines, especially recently, because we think that the international law is something that protects us, and that law has to be respected by all the actors, because otherwise it will be a disaster. And we can say that, and we can see that every day in my own continent with the war in Ukraine, the war that Putin has started in February 2022, 2 years of war, and you can see there that international means really something. So it's really part of our strategy of security to protect international law. The second aspect, of course, of this region is that it's very, very important when it comes to economic and trade routes. 60% of the trade goes by this region. So, of course, we are very dependent of this region. We are an open economy, and it's also the case, of course, of the European Union. So we have to be able to protect and stabilize the region as much as we can. And the third reason, which is not unique but quite European, I would say, is really the protection of what we call the global public goods. When I speak about that, I of course have a reference on climate, biodiversity, and ocean, and I will explain a bit later about that. But this is really something that we want to protect, because we know that if there is troubles around climate, around biodiversity, if there is a lack of resources, that will of course be a source of conflict, and we have to prevent that by at this stage trying to act on this very serious situation. Of course, in 2018, the strategy was also focused on defense. It's true that we provide equipment to many nations, especially in this country. I of course think about India. We have a strategic partnership with India, but it's also the case with Indonesia. We have done a lot of very important steps with them recently, and we have a lot of friends that have seen that we are very keen on protecting the sovereignty, which is key to us, and it's part of our national DNA, I would say, because you know that all nations have their own founders or characters, And us, we value a lot sovereignty because we have been invaded by Germany and we have faced that. And in our story, it's really important to be able to be sovereign and to be able to decide by ourselves. This strategy, this French strategy, has been also conceptualized at European level. We have discussed that with our friends from the European Union, and in 2022, during the French presidency, there was this European strategy for Indo-Pacific, which is mainly focused on international law, as I said, on green transition, green energy, and with a lot of investment, especially in this region. I can quote two or three projects here in the Philippines, with the Crimario project that helps the Coast Guard, but also the Copernicus project when it comes to satellite imagery. Here in the Philippines, of course, we share many things. First of all, we are two democratic countries, and it's not that often that you find that in that region. So we really value our partnership with the Philippines. We have a very important dialogue with with your authorities, and especially between our two presidents. And now we are trying to be more and more present. Of course, we are a small country, to be honest, but we are trying to collaborate with other countries. And I want to quote our participation, of course, to the recent Balikatan exercise with the frigate on the HRDR part, so really the first part. But it was important for us to see that we would be able to do more in the future with our American friends, but also our Filipino friends. But that was really important for us. We have decided also to have a cooperation in defense between the two ministers that have met in December last year. They have signed a letter of intent, which really put the basis on what we can do together. So we are really starting the process, and we are hoping to do more, especially next week, because there will be a committee of defense in Paris, and we are really willing to see more interactions between our two nations. One last word, and I will give the floor to my other colleague. Just one last word to tell you also that we are very happy, and it's really linked to this strategy to launch in June an initiative on ocean. The aim is really to see that France and the Philippines are two maritime powers and two maritime countries. And we are launching an event and a program during 1 year until the conference of Nice on protection of biodiversity and ocean. And this program will be around the three key projects that we would like to see launched. So, of course, an initiative on blue economy, on defense and security, with the aim of having maybe a security dialogue when it comes to maritime issue with the Philippines. And the third one is, of course, the interaction between our researchers and policymakers in that field of ocean and biodiversity and maritime issues at large. So this is really summarized, but what I wanted to share with you today. And I'm of course willing to answer to some questions after the other presentations. So thank you very much for having me today. It's really a pleasure, and I hope to see you soon and to interact with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, His Excellency, Mr. Remy Tivahan. So let me change the microphones for a moment. So moving on to our next speaker, he is presently the acting Deputy Chief of Mission of the Embassy of United States. He arrived in Manila in September 2021 to serve as Counselor for Public Affairs at the Embassy. He joined the State Department as public diplomacy focused and foreign service officer in 2004. He has served overseas previously in the Philippines as well as in Singapore, Myanmar, and Afghanistan. He has also served several tours in Washington, D.C., where most recently he was the Deputy Director for Public Diplomacy in the State Department's Bureau of East Asian and Pacific Affairs. He is native of Chicago, Illinois, and a graduate of Brown University and University of Iowa. Prior joining the Foreign Service, he also spent 13 years as professor of the Film and Media Studies, teaching both in the US and in Turkey. So at this point, may we welcome Dr. John Groch. The volume of the mic is quite low. So
which mic would you like me to use?
maybe if you could just volumize your voice, but hello? If this is too small. The volume is too low, so maybe you could use this one.
I'll use this one. Sure.
Thank you so much.
All right. A little bit of tech issues up here. Bear with us just a second. There we go. Where did you get that picture? Please tell me who I have to fire when I get back to my office. I have no idea where that was taken. That's bizarre. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having us here. Ambassador Del Rosario, my colleagues from the Diplomatic Corps, and everyone assembled. It's an honor for the U.S. to be involved in this forum, and as you may have just gleaned, it's a particular delight for me to be here. I did spend almost a decade and a half as a university professor before joining the Diplomatic Corps, and this is kind of the home turf. It's always good to be back on a college campus, back talking to students and faculty, so thank you for that. We have a discussion to get to, so what I want to do briefly this afternoon is just set the stage by laying out the basic structure and framework of the U.S.'s Indo-Pacific strategy. And with that, we can get later to questions of specifics and current implications and things of that nature. So what I want to do is lay out what that strategy is, both what it is and why it is, what it is we're seeking to attain through the strategy. Shortly after President Biden assumed office in 2021, he and his administration articulated their vision for the Indo-Pacific. Their vision was for an Indo-Pacific that was free, open, connected, prosperous, secure, and resilient, which is a lot. It's there, though, because we see the Indo-Pacific as vital to the security and prosperity of the United States. This is nations work in their interests, and we see this region as in our interests. And so in looking at the region, the U.S. has identified 5 objectives of pursuit in the Indo-Pacific region. These taken together can be seen as the pillars of our Indo-Pacific strategy. And so I'd like to briefly discuss each of these 5 objectives in turn, so that you'll see where we're coming from. The first objective, and this is probably the one that is most on people's minds today with recent developments in the Philippines, the first of these is to advance a free and open Indo-Pacific, working closely with like-minded partners to ensure that the region remains open and accessible, and that the region's seas and skies are governed and used according to international law. This is the objective that is, of course, immediately relevant given recent developments in the South China Sea. Right? As the Philippines, but not just the Philippines, as we'll come to, works to uphold its sovereignty in the South China Sea, its sovereignty over its exclusive economic zones. Right? The United States, as a treaty ally, supports the Philippines in this endeavor, as we've seen in the news recently, and so do our closest partners. Right? In fact, significantly, the number of countries that have begun speaking out on behalf of the Philippines and on behalf of the Philippine claims of sovereignty has, and on behalf of upholding international law and the law of the sea, those numbers have been increasing. Recently, for example, we've seen Vietnam and India, among other places, speaking out in support of Philippine sovereignty in the South China Sea. These countries have called upon countries like the PRC to not take aggressive action in the South China Sea, to uphold the arbitral ruling that rejected Beijing's expansive claims in the South China Sea. That orchestration of support for the rule of international law and the international rules-based order is one pillar of our Indo-Pacific strategy. The second pillar, to build connections within and beyond the region. Within the region is almost something that may fly under the radar here in the Philippines because the U.S.-Philippine connection is so old and so strong. But a part of the larger Indo-Pacific strategy is to build those connections throughout the Indo-Pacific, to strengthen them where they exist, to build them where they have not yet really existed. And to do that not only by deepening our alliances and partnerships, but by developing, again, further connections and partnerships. So what that means is that we're not only seeking to deepen our bilateral relationships with countries in the Indo-Pacific, but we're seeking to build up more informal and cooperative associations within the Indo-Pacific. One good example, one recent example, is the trilateral cooperation between the US, the Philippines, and Japan, which we saw in the news most recently when President Marcos was in the United States last month. We've also seen trilateral cooperation between the US, Japan, and Korea. We've seen quadrilateral cooperation between the US, Japan, Australia, and India. All of these efforts are designed to make sure that what we have here is not a policy that's just kind of a hub and spoke, with the US reaching out individually to countries, but instead a policy where the region is knit together. Cooperating with us, yes, certainly, but cooperating with each other as well for a stronger overall Indo-Pacific. Third, to drive Indo-Pacific prosperity. Because, to echo what Remy was just saying, the US's economic prosperity is tied to the Indo-Pacific region. Right? Trade between the US and the Indo-Pacific region in the last year for which we have numbers, 2022, was $2 trillion. And there was nearly $1 trillion of foreign direct investment by the US in the Indo-Pacific region. The Indo-Pacific is a major economic driver of US prosperity, and US investment is a major economic driver of Indo-Pacific prosperity. We are intertwined and mutually cooperative on this point. And as such, we seek this kind of regional economic interconnectedness that benefits all parties. That's why in March, you may have noticed the US sent a presidential level trade and investment mission to the Philippines. 22 major US companies, led by our Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, were in the Philippines looking at ways in which the US can be a more active, the US private sector can be more active in the Philippines and be better partners in Philippine prosperity. It's why next week you're going to see the US Trade and Development Agency hosting in Manila the Indo-Pacific Business Forum, which is going to bring together, my notes here say 500, but I was just told it's 700 individuals and businesses to talk about how it is that Western companies and interests can build prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. We also see this in a different way through our US Agency for International Development, USAID, and the way in which USAID is focused on doing things like expanding internet connectivity in very remote areas in the Philippines, so that as the Philippine economy continues to grow, it's not just a growth in Greater Manila, but in fact, all areas of the Philippines are better equipped to participate in a global digital economy. Those kinds of partnerships as well are crucial to the Indo-Pacific strategy, which is, and what this underscores is, not just or even primarily a security strategy, but a kind of, whole of government and whole of society strategic effort. However, fourth, speaking of security, is to bolster Indo-Pacific security by maintaining a strong and consistent defense presence that supports regional peace, regional security, stability, and prosperity. This, again, you've seen just recently, if you've been following the news, you'll see we've just wrapped up Balikatan, the annual US-Philippine bilateral military exercise, and that increases the ability of our two defense organizations to work together. You see this at the level of policy talks as well. President Marcos and his top security advisors were in Hawaii last year consulting with our U.S. Indo-Pacific Command about mutual security issues. Secretary of Defense Austin hosted Philippine Secretary of Defense Teodoro recently for similar sorts of discussions. Our partners, such as the Australians, have also been part of those talks. And so you see that underscoring of security issues. Finally, fifth. The fifth pillar of our Indo-Pacific strategy is to build regional resilience against 21st century transnational threats. What we mean by transnational threats are those threats to all countries regardless of ideology, regardless of alliance, etc. And from that description, as you might guess, the chief among those right now is climate change. Right? So we find ourselves working in the Indo-Pacific for common solutions to the climate crisis, a common focus on alternative energy sources, and common solutions to transnational apolitical problems like disease and public health, right? Public health issues. You see USAID doing this in the Philippines, working with civil society partners to conserve national resources, working on diseases like HIV and tuberculosis. You see it in other efforts as well. One of the other hats I wear at the embassy is as the chairman of the Fulbright Commission at our embassy, the PIEF, the Philippine American Education Foundation. And in fact, on Tuesday, PIEF will be signing a memorandum of understanding with the Philippine Department of Energy to begin building dedicated scholarship opportunities for Filipinos to study 21st century clean energy technologies, nuclear, wind, hydro, and so forth. So in all these ways, we're looking, again, not at a political or military struggle, but the common struggles we all have against these kinds of apolitical threats. So that in brief, those in brief are the five pillars of the U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy. As the last thing I think I'd leave you with, the thing I would end with here, is that is the U.S. strategy, but that is hardly exclusively an American orientation toward the region. And as you've already heard from Remy, as you'll be hearing from Kim, there's a lot of overlap between the way in which our like-minded countries approach this region, and that is not a coincidence. That actually is at the heart of everything we're trying to do here, which is gather the like-minded partners, look for those points of common interest, and work together toward achieving our common goals. So I'll leave that there. I'm looking very forward to the conversation later, and I'll turn it back to you, Sophia.
Thank you, Dr. Groch. Yes, you can leave the microphone there. Thank you once again, Dr. Groch, for that remarks. And now let's move on to our last speaker, or for our last remark before we proceed to our open forum. So she is the diplomat working for Foreign, Commonwealth, and Development Office, or FCDO, and is the head of the Foreign and Security Policy Team at British Embassy, Manila. She previously served as Second Secretary for Internal Political at the British Embassy in Bangkok from 2009 to 2014. More recently, her career has focused on national security, including as head of the terrorist kidnap team in the FCDO's counterterrorism department and a team leader in security policy development, responsible for conventional arms control policy. Her last posting was at the British Embassy in Rabat, Morocco, where she headed up the counterterrorism team. May I call on stage the political counselor for Foreign and Security Policy team of the British Embassy in Manila, Ms. Kim Clark.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I see I've got away without having a photo up there, so that's a very good thing for me. Of course, the thing coming third in speaking today means that a lot of points that you've heard already, as John says, you will hear again from me, because our strategies are quite consistent in certainly their approach and aims and objectives. So where the sort of subtitle is around implications of diverse Indo-Pacific strategies, the truth probably is that they're not that diverse at all. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting me along today to speak to you on this subject, which is obviously very key and forefront in most of the work that we do in many ways. So, interesting to hear that France's Indo-Pacific strategy started in 2018, in fact, so both the US and UK were a little bit behind the curve there, because ours was also started in 2021, along with the US. The sort of focus came in 2021 when we introduced our integrated review, which highlighted the strategic importance of the region for the UK. And subsequently delivery of our ambition on a tilt towards the Indo-Pacific. In March last year, we concluded that we had already tilted, and therefore we launched the Integrated Review Refresh, which was entitled Responding to a More Contested and Volatile World. This reaffirmed our commitment to the region and puts a long-term strategic footing, making this tilt a permanent pillar of the UK's international policy. So the UK will continue to strengthen our bilateral, minilateral and institutional relationships across the region, working alongside our partners to support a free and open Indo-Pacific. Again, you just heard almost those words coming from John, because definitely that partnerships element is a real key sort of central pillar to the strategy overall. And again, many of our like-minded allies and partners have also developed their Indo-Pacific strategies. You've heard of 3 here today. You were meant to have Canada here as well. Their strategy is really growing and developing at pace here, and many other partners as well have their own separate strategies. Hold on. Yeah, so all of those different networks that we're developing and partnerships are based on a shared view that the prosperity and security of the Euro-Atlantic and Indo-Pacific are inextricably linked. Obviously for the UK and France, perhaps we're more associated with a sort of Euro-Atlantic focus, and so of course that is very key, but Indo-Pacific has equal weighting for us. That is what our strategy outlines. The region is critical to our economy. Again, you've heard the word economy bandied around a lot today. Our security and to our interest in an open and stable international order. It is at the centre of pressing global challenges, from climate change to maritime security to upholding and shaping international rules and norms. So the UK's role in the region is basically to achieve a stable, long-term and guided sort of regional perspective, supporting ASEAN centrality and the Pacific Way. Ambitious and effective partnerships are key to achieving our objectives, and we will prioritise working with and through regional partners and institutions. So a question I get asked quite a bit is, why the UK is so interested in the Indo-Pacific region. Remy has already mentioned the statistic of 60% of global trade passing through the shipping routes of the Indo-Pacific. We also have 1.7 million British citizens living in the region, and trade for us reached nearly £300 billion in 2023, which is about 12% of our GDP. So the Indo-Pacific security has a direct impact on our households for all of these reasons within the UK. And sort of through deepening defence and security ties, the UK will work to support peace and stability across the Indo-Pacific. As the world's centre of economic security, as the world's centre of economic security shifts eastwards, with over 50% of global growth projected to come from this region by 2050, the Indo-Pacific is important to the UK's current and future economic and security and prosperity. So to strengthen both our own and the region's economic security, we are building technology partnerships, diversifying supply chains, and reducing our dependencies away from hostile states to trusted parties. Again, very consistent with what you've heard here today. This region is critical to accelerating the world's transition to net zero. Our partnerships to tackle climate change are mobilising billions of pounds in green finance. Also, through initiatives such as British International Partnerships, we will enter new markets across the region and provide honest, reliable infrastructure finance to support the green transition, digital solutions, and disaster resilient infrastructure. So, in conclusion, our goal is to continue building strong partnerships and collaboration in the region, and together we can ensure a more stable, peaceful, and prosperous future for all. I'll leave it at that, I think, but thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you, Ms. Clark, for that remarks, and also thank you to Mr. Remy, Dr. Groch, and as well again, Ms. Clark, for your still diverse and fruitful discussion this afternoon. So to move on and proceed to our next segment, may I call on Ms. Jonalyn Villasante, our Senior Lecturer of the Department of International Studies, to join us and lead us to our panel discussion in open forum. So may I now call on again on stage our speakers, Mr. Remy, Dr. Groch, and Ms. Clark, to join us for our panel discussion.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the forum Evolving Geopolitics in the Indo-Pacific Region, Implications of Diverse Indo-Pacific Strategies for the Philippines and Regional Order. We are honored to have with us distinguished diplomats from the British Embassy, from the Embassy of France, and the Embassy of the United States in Manila to share with us their insights and perspectives on this important topic. To contextualize, the Indo-Pacific region emerged as a pivotal arena for geopolitical dynamics. It is the world's fastest growing region, accounting for 60% of the global economy. Home to more than half of the world's population and housing 7 of the world's largest military. Thus, it is recognized as the world's center of gravity. However, it is also a major theater for major power competitions, complex geopolitical flashpoints, and numerous traditional and non-traditional security issues threatening to destabilize the region. As the Philippines and all Indo-Pacific countries navigate these complexities, understanding the strategies and policies of major global players such as Britain, the United States, and France is crucial for crafting informed policies and responses and fostering regional cooperation. So to structure our discussion this afternoon, the first part of the forum will be, I will be the one to ask questions. Some of the questions came from the questions submitted by our participants this afternoon. I have selected those questions and categorized it into divided it into three categories. The first set of questions will be about the implementation of your Indo-Pacific strategies. The second part will delve into the theme of our topic, which is its implications for the Philippines. And the third one will be implications for the broader Indo-Pacific region. The second part of our forum, we will open the floor to our audience to engage with our speakers and ask questions. So let's begin with our initial discussion. The first question pertains to your influence in the Indo-Pacific region and the implementation of your respective foreign policies. The U.S., with its 5 security allies in the region, is the leading provider of the region's security architecture. France, with its territories and military presence in the region, is considered as a resident power in the Indo-Pacific. The United Kingdom, with its Commonwealth connections, also maintains significant ties in the region. So how do you leverage these relationships to advance your strategic objectives? Some of those objectives you were able to expound in your opening remarks. And how do you utilize those relationships in order to maintain peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific? Let's start with DCM Tito Verayan of France.
Thank you very much. Can you repeat the first question? Sorry.
The first question is, how do you leverage your relationships in order to promote your strategic objectives? And how do you utilize these relationships in order to maintain peace and stability in the region?
First of all, of course, when I presented earlier the strategy of France, I said that it was really launched in 2018, and after that, for example, the foreign service was reinforced for that purpose, which means that all our embassies are growing in the region to interact more and more with senior officials from different countries. We have also strengthened our strategic partnership, mainly with India, which is now key in our region, but also with other partners. And you ask us also about the Philippines, right? So to be more concrete, for example, we are a small mission. Huh? We are 48 in total, which is not a lot. It's like the middle range embassy in our network. But we have decided to have a full-fledged defense mission, which was closed a few years back. So that to say that we really want to invest in the Philippines and to invest in that region and to invest a lot of resources, be it human resources, but also financing a lot of projects that we do through European Union. And for example, we have a program called Global Gateway, and 60 to 70% of that program is really dedicated to that region, with millions of euros that will be spent in order to build connectivity, help developing, of course, networks, information networks, but also very concrete project. For example, we are going to spend 60 million euro in circular economy here to limit waste, to limit plastic use, single plastic used. This kind of very say small scale project but we have decided to put resources and efforts, especially in that region. And that is not only France, but also the European Union, and I really want to stress it here. We have now almost every year Indo-Pacific Forum, be it in Brussels, but also we are hoping to have it in this region. In 2022, ministers from this region came to Paris. It was really a major success for us. We also value the role of ASEAN. We didn't speak about ASEAN for the moment, but I guess it will come into the discussion. And of course, when we speak about ASEAN, centrality of ASEAN in your diplomacy, for us is very key because ASEAN is really the best forum for us to interact, to discuss with countries that are, yes, very different, but that also have same objective in mind, which is growing and have more prosperity and more stability. So this is how we operate. So we have been very happy to be integrated to the ADDM Plus. It's the forum of the ASEAN for ministers of defense. So we have been associated to that, and it's a very good step. And we are looking forward for more engagement with the Philippines, but also with the ASEAN.
Thank you, sir. Now let's hear the response from the United States. Dr. Groth.
Well, it's similar in a lot of ways. We, as you mentioned in the introduction, the U.S. has 5 treaty allies in the Indo-Pacific region, one of which is the Philippines. And those relationships really provide a core for working in the region because those relationships are formal and legal. But they also provide a kind of template for what we would seek to do here and what we've increasingly been seeking to do, which is to play a convening role, to bring people to the table to work together on common projects. Right? A good example of this is something that I hope, if my press people have done their job, you'll hear more about next week, but that we began talking about during the Trade and Investment Mission in March, is a project in the offing that is being called the Luzon Economic Corridor. It's a project for infrastructure and development investment that would stretch from the Clark-Subic area all the way down to Batangas. About 40% of Philippine economic activity takes place along that corridor. About 40% of Filipinos live along that corridor. And it's a site where we want to see major investment and development. Now, here's the thing. We can't do Belt and Road. Apparently the Chinese can't do Belt and Road either, but that's a separate discussion. But we can't do Belt and Road. We can't just show up as the United States and say, we're going to do all this stuff here. What the Luzon Economic Corridor is going to require is bringing together a number of our partners, both from other governments and the private sector, in a wide-ranging project where we look at it and say, well, you know what, this piece of it, Japan will be good at this. Japan's going to own this piece of this. Korea's going to own this piece of this. This international conglomerate will be very good at taking this part of it. So it won't be simply the United States creating a major economic engine. It will be the United States playing the convening role, investing ourselves as well, but playing that convening role, bringing everybody to the table and saying, okay, now how can we all work together and how can we help? One of the things I've seen change over the 20 years I've been with the State Department is that I think in the past, regardless of which administration we were talking about, the U.S. tended to think very, very bilaterally, at least about this region of the world. And to think very competitively, even with regard to our like-minded partners, you know, to push hard to make sure young Filipinos went to American schools, you know, American universities, not British universities, not French universities. That changing has shifted. That changing, I think, I mean, yeah, we still like to win, But that changing has shifted more to a sense of we all have a set of common goals here. Even if we're talking about educating, sending people, students to one of our countries, to use that example, there's a common set of goals here, which is to build relationships on the interpersonal level with the region and to expose people from the Indo-Pacific region to, Western values and ways of thinking in a different context. Any of us can accomplish that, right? The cooperation among us, I think, has taken more and more of a priority. So for us, again, how do we leverage those relationships? I mean, we have them, but what we do is we leverage that convening power, we hope, to everyone's benefit.
Thank you, sir, for highlighting the convening efforts of the United States here in the Indo-Pacific region. And our last to respond is our representative from the British Embassy, ma'am.
Right, so I should have had most time to think through my answer, shouldn't I, really? But again, it'd be very, very similar in lots of ways. The thing is, I suppose, being based in the Philippines, is that the UK may come across as a smaller partner in many ways because, that the US, Australia, Japan would be the big names up there. So it's very important for us to work through those partnerships, develop those partnerships, but also, I think, to sort of identify where our niche comes, what areas can the UK offer that others can't, what particular areas of expertise may exist. So I guess also, say, in developing those relationships, we sort of look to build on that, the multi-mini bilateral aspects that I mentioned in our strategy as well. So our sort of pushing to become dialogue partner within ASEAN sort of gives us a foot in the door in sort of ASEAN negotiations, sort of looking to join the ADMM Plus as well, as Remy mentioned as well. It's, those sort of groupings are very good platforms for the UK to be able to then insert itself and try and be in a more influential position, I suppose, to leverage those relationships, I would say, is the main way forward.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Now, for our second question, it addresses your security policy's perception of China as a threat or a potential threat to the Indo-Pacific peace and security. I note that you highlighted in your foreign policies and the statements of your leaders that your respective strategies do not really intend to isolate, constrain, or contain the rise of China or other powers in the region. However, we all know what's happening in the West Philippine Sea right now. We know that China is continues to challenge the existing international order and also its economic coercion. So the question is, how do you envision your Indo-Pacific strategy to influence somehow influence China's behavior to become a more responsible power in the region? Or how do you contribute to shaping the strategic environment in which China operates? So I would like to ask the United States first.
Lucky me. I think that, to understand where we are with the security policy, I would say a couple of things as a preface. One is, and our president has said this, is I think it's important to understand that our Indo-Pacific strategy is not part of our China strategy. Our China strategy is part of our Indo-Pacific strategy. That is to say, if tomorrow everything changed, and if tomorrow it was all sunshine and roses between Beijing and Washington, we would still have an Indo-Pacific strategy that is important in and of itself because the region is important in and of itself. That said, if you go back to those 5 pillars I was talking about, the first of those 5 was the adherence to international norms and the following of international law open seas, open skies. Our approach here is not necessarily an approach to China, it's an approach to the maintaining of that value. Now, if there are actions on the part of the PRC or any country that contests that value, we're going to contest that as well. But we've often said with regard to the PRC that our response there, whether it's in security or any other venue, is rooted in three possible responses, and the three C's, right? Which is cooperate, compete, and contest, right? Cooperate where we can, compete where there is an open and free competition, and contest those areas that are not open and free. We actually cooperate on some security issues with the Chinese, right? Because there are areas where we can't cooperate. We contest when we feel like the core values of our alliances and relationships are being contested, as they are at the moment in the South China Sea. So, I think that's the key thread there, is we're not adopting a security posture to face off against China. We're adopting a security posture to secure a free and open Indo-Pacific, against anything that would threaten that. So that's an initial answer because you put me on the spot first, but I'll hand it to other people to say things more intelligent than that.
May we hear the response from our representative from the British Embassy?
Sure. Okay. So, unsurprisingly, it would be similar to what you said, and not much more intelligent at all. But definitely, our approach to China, and I would say our China strategy, I'm not sure that I do see it sitting under our Indo-Pacific strategy. I think it would probably complement it perhaps a little more, because our Indo-Pacific strategy is quite distinct from the aims, I suppose. But similarly, we have also the policy of engaging with China where we can. Where that's the China relationship to all of us is very important. So we don't want to lose sight of that at any point. So engaging with them as much as possible is the way. But equally, there's that the calling out part, if you like, is still very important, because all of us are trying to get respect for the rules-based international system. At the end of the day, that's the aim, internationally. So, and the UK has done that quite a bit recently in a lot of the issues that we've had with China. So, we show that we're not afraid to do that, but at the same time wanting to try and build that relationship with them as well as far as possible. So I do think that our Indo-Pacific strategy is slightly distinct from it, that they're not hugely interlinked in some ways.
Again, I will not be very, very original. What I can add is that, yes, with China, first of all, we were among the first one to recognize China in 1964, which helps us a lot, actually, to engage with them, because they value that. So it's very, for us, it's interesting. We cooperate where we can. There are areas where we can cooperate, even though we are trying to be less naive than we were before, especially when I have some examples of scientific research, for example, but I won't go into deep here. But of course, we are trying to cooperate with them, that's for sure. We have a lot of cultural exchanges also, people-to-people ties, because it's very important. We didn't speak really about that, but it's true that when the two populations of two countries are able to interact together, know each other, it helps. It can prevent also some other issues. But also China is a competitor to us, to be honest, and and that has been recognized for many years. But they're also dependent of us. When it comes, for example, we have this issue of electrical vehicles. They want to export, and they need to export to Europe, which is a very huge market as the US. And we are 450 million inhabitants, so a lot of citizens, a large market, integrated, and of course they want to come. It's normal, but at the same time they have to understand there are rules, and they have to respect some. I mean, they have applied for those rules of international commerce. So we are trying also to recall that. When it comes to sensitive, I would say, strategic issues, I mean, our line is very clear. We defend international law, we defend the right of overflight, we defend the freedom of navigation, and that allows us to navigate into the Taiwan Strait without trouble, actually. So they know that this is what we are engaged and what we are ready for. We stand, I mean, we have to stand for our values, and that is really something that we all share together today. And it's clear that yes, the democratic world is challenging. It's challenged today, and that we have to be really proud of this and to demonstrate that yes, it's a good model, and international law has to be respected. And if you are firm on that, I won't say that we will be able to change their minds. I won't say that because we have to be humble. But at least they know that yes, it won't be an easy path. That's what I can say.
Thank you for elaborating both your Indo-Pacific strategies and also your China policy. So let's now move on to the second element of our theme, which is the implications of your Indo-Pacific strategy for the Philippines. The first question is directed again to all of you. So considering the current administration's security priorities outlined in our National Security Policy 2023-2028, and the shift in our foreign policy approach from a pro-China stance to a policy that accommodates like-minded countries like the US, UK, France, even Australia, Canada, and other Indo-Pacific countries. How do you view the Philippines as an ally or partner in realizing our shared objectives? And how do you think the Philippines will contribute to the stabilization and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region? I'm trying to rotate who will answer first. Councillor Kim. Yes, an ally and partner in realizing our shared vision. And also, how do you view the Philippines' contribution to the stabilization and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region? Thank you.
Okay, where do I begin? So I think certainly under the present administration of the Philippines, then the Philippines has become a stronger partner for all of us. That opportunity has opened up and strengthened and grown, and I think as well that President Marcos has gone out there to really demonstrate his position as a sort of statesman, almost in engagement with an international community. There's so much travel that he does to build up those relationships, just both with us in country, but also with other countries too. So, and I think that the messages he gives are around wanting to work towards, as I say, respect for the rules-based international system, consistently makes those messages, be that in the UN or just within speeches in the country too, demonstrating that he's open to this sort of more unilateral approach with US, Japan and others. I think there can be no doubt that the Philippines currently is in a good, strong place to work with us in sharing objectives. And as for its contribution to stabilization, that's a slightly trickier question in some ways. And as I say, working towards those shared objectives, that definitely underpins the stabilization. It's a very difficult one to balance, but just consistent messaging around promoting the rules-based order and working together with partners to ensure that stabilization is a good way forward to deliver that.
Thank you. Sir?
So, first, just to underscore, yes. I mean, when President Marcos came into office and announced that his policy was going to be friend to all, enemy to none, I can tell you, we at the embassy were very relieved to hear that. We were not, looking for a most favored nation status. It was just nice to hear that we might be on the same playing field as everyone else after a number of years where that was not the case. And that has proven, he's been as good as his word on that, and there have been this marvelous outreach that Kim just talked about, his international travel, connections to the international community. I would say with regard to this question, it gets into something we haven't talked about yet. And it's a wrinkle, but for an international relations program, we need to talk about it. I think the Philippines has a great deal to bring to the table in terms of regional stability. I think it has a desire to see that. I think it has a history of cooperating with the partners in the region. I think there is a clear, as you both say, a clear desire on the part of the current administration to extend that cooperation to more countries. So what's the big challenge? To be honest, the big challenge is ASEAN. And this is not to criticize ASEAN, but it is to say that the Philippines is part of a formal relationship with 9 other countries that operates on a consensus basis. And this makes the diplomacy of regional security very, very complicated, because there is this question of what can the Philippines do with the kind of like-minded partners we've been doing today. When does the Philippines have to cooperate with ASEAN? If there's not consensus in ASEAN, what are the implications there for the Philippines? Now, we all of our countries have an ASEAN relationship that we build and that we work with, but one shouldn't sugarcoat it. It gets very tricky when you've got that combination of relationships we've been talking about, and then the formalized 10-nation relationship that the Philippines belongs to. That can make for some very tricky operations. It's one of the reasons why what we have is an Indo-Pacific strategy and not just a Philippine strategy, because it is a recognition that in the end, success in the Philippines and success in the region has to involve all of the regional players and bringing them all to the table. The Philippines, I think, has come to the table, more readily than most, and that's made it a great partner. But I think we honestly have a little ways to go yet with getting a kind of perfect accord between ASEAN's vision and other kinds of vision of the region. And that, I think, puts the Philippines in a very unusual position.
Yes, thank you very much. If you want, I want to jump on John's remark, because I think it's very crucial. And we have seen how the Philippines can be really a major player within the ASEAN, because the Philippines had the presidency of the ASEAN and of the EU-ASEAN Forum. So it was a very important gathering for us within the EU, and the presidency was very well done. So really congratulations to all of you, because it was really well done, and we have been looking to have such a concrete outcomes, and it's very, very positive. So I think that indeed within the ASEAN, the Philippines has a major role to play. It's difficult. We know that. We can observe that. But still, you are doing great. To tackle the first question, yes, of course, in 2022, when the new President Marcos, came to office, there were a lot of hopes, especially from Europe, because let's be honest, the former administration was not really keen on engaging with us, and it was quite reciprocal. There was quite a reciprocity at a point where, after I've been posted to our perm rep in Brussels, and I was part of the core team that handled the French presidency of the EU. And when I applied for Manila, I can tell you that everybody wants to talk to me and said, "Why Manila? I mean, you have all the choices, and you said you chose Manila." Well, at that time, I believed that it was a good choice. I still believe it, that it was a relevant choice. And of course, the policy of the president and its administration to diversify the partnership has opened a window for us, which are not
major players like the US, like Australia, like Japan. We are a small player, we know that, we are very humble about that, but still, here is the fact, the Philippines wants to engage with us, and it's reciprocal, and again, it's the same for France and for the EU, so we are very happy to multiply the visits. I can tell you that I'm super busy because we are having a lot of visits, so basically my daily life is writing reports about a visit and preparing another visit on the same time. So it's a bit crazy, but still, it's very good. So we are very excited about that. And we are more and more interactions also with our naval forces, which is important because we have two command in the Pacific. And it's very important to see that with the Philippines, we have a real partner. So we are trying to build on that, and that has become possible because of the new administration. So that's really the case. As a major country of this region, of course, Philippines plays, I think, a very important role, especially on international law. The 12th of July is coming soon, so it will be also a good time to recall about the arbitration award and the fact that UNCLOS has to be applied, especially in that region.
Thank you for highlighting the importance of the Philippines in your respective foreign policy and its potential contribution to maintaining peace and stability in the region. So we now go to country-specific questions, which were put forward by the participants in advance when they registered. So, sir, let's start with you, sir. So, though France is not a part of any formal security arrangements in the region, it was recently announced that discussions on the possible Philippine-France Visiting Forces Agreement will commence in May. We also note that you joined the recent Balikatan exercises last month for the first time. So may we ask if you have any visiting forces agreements with other Indo-Pacific countries? What can we expect from France as a security partner? And how do you think this potential security partnership will contribute to addressing common security concerns between the Philippines and France?
Thank you very much for this question. I think I've said a lot about that, but to go directly to the point, we have a few arrangements with some country of the Indo-Pacific. I talked about India earlier. For example, we have a very specific arrangement with India with a reciprocal access to bases in the Indian Ocean. With them, where we face the same challenges as in this region. We have that also with Australia. We have a special partnership, and with Japan as well. With the Philippines, it's indeed the beginning. So we have signed a letter of intent, which is really the basis of a cooperation between the two armed forces. And when our minister Sébastien Lecornu came to Manila, he met, of course, Guibault Teodoro, and they had a very extensive talks together and discussion, and they decided together that it was a good start to start the negotiation. Of course, it's a very long process, as you can imagine, because it requires a lot of authorization from both sides. I can make a confession: when it comes to bureaucracy, we are as good as you. So it will take some time, but it's true that the process is starting this week, actually, next week, actually, in Paris. So we are very happy and confident about that. And again, the aim of all of that is really peace, security, ability to exchange information about what we can see in the region, what the Philippines can see also, exchange also with our partners. And this explains why we have chosen to embark in this Balikatan exercise. It was not an easy choice, to be honest, because we are trying also to avoid any kind of block that has been in the mind of certain leaders for a long time. So we are trying to be positive, to have a positive narrative, and Balikatan happened a week before Xi Jinping visited Paris for a state visit. But we have decided to do so, and it's clear. I mean, we don't hide our objective. It's really to partner with our friends and allies in this region, and we are very proud about that. And I think it's well received, even by your neighbor.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is for Councillor Clark. Beyond the visit of the Minister for Indo-Pacific last year, what are some key areas identified by the UK's Indo-Pacific tilt for increased cooperation with the Philippines? Additionally, we would like to know about the initiative of the AUKUS partnership and how the UK plans to balance its security commitments in the Indo-Pacific with its broader global interests.
Okay, so the Indo-Pacific ministers' visit, first of all, in terms of the priorities that she identified, that was the first part, right? I'm not so much sure that it's really about her coming here to identify the priorities. It's more around us kind of promoting the priorities the UK already has with the Philippines specifically, for her to be able to kind of highlight that and develop the engagement we have. So her program at the time was very much around sort of security elements, sort of maritime security in particular, because a lot of our engagement was in that area. And I suppose sort of broader economic security issues as well. I think that was really the focus of her particular visit. Also last year we had our Foreign Secretary visit later on after her. That was just ahead of his trip then to China as well. So again, as you know, when you asked earlier about leveraging relationships and so on, sort of that sort of ministerial engagement is both the US and France have spoken about visits they have too, numerous visits they have, that the UK that tries to do the same as well, so that we use the ministers in a way to be able to highlight those priorities that we have. So I think that was it. The second question was around AUKUS and, sorry, can you just refresh me? The initiatives.
Of the AUKUS partnership.
So AUKUS, I mean, obviously you've got the US sitting here too, who can also speak onto the same question. No, I can't believe you asked me about AUKUS when we're sitting next to France. That is so unfair. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, yeah. So obviously, the second phase now has just launched recently, and part of the announcements around that was, being open to broadening out to other partners coming on board with that as well. So, it's a very long-term project anyway, that the sort of priorities remain as they were at the start of the launch, in terms of, having that sort of trilateral grouping in terms of taking forward the submarine project, which is like 20 years or something project. It's not, so the direction of that is not going to change. We're not going to broaden it out elsewhere, as far as I'm aware, beyond that sort of membership question. But John may wish to elaborate more on AUKUS, or he may not wish to.
I do not wish to.
He does not wish to. Let's park AUKUS then.
AUKUS keeps going.
It keeps going. That's it. That's the definitive line.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. And now for the last question for the United States. This question is concerns about the momentum that we have that the Philippines and the US have started. So undeniably, the Philippine-US relations is currently at a peak given our aligned security objectives. During our bilateral and trilateral meetings with Japan, the U.S. outlined plans to promote inclusive economic growth, invest in clean energy and emerging technologies, expand defense and security cooperation, and strengthen people-to-people ties. I think you've elaborated this in your opening statement. So if there is a change in leadership, how can we ensure that we sustain our momentum and continue the initiatives that benefit not only the Philippines and the US, but also the entire region as well. This is premise on the reality that all our plans and programs are subject to budgetary considerations.
Well, thank you. I've had a lovely time, and I really must be going. No, the answer to that, I think, is something I alluded to in my opening remarks. Yes, the U.S. may have a change in administration soon. So too may the U.K. So too may France in the near future. I think the goal, and one of the reasons why we're so focused on partnerships, and again, not just bilateral, but multilateral partnerships, is to, in fact, create a certain amount of resilience in the efforts in the regions that will withstand individual changes in leadership or ideology at the top. I think if we were to see a change in the administration, if the next U.S. administration were less focused on multilateral issues, it would nevertheless be the case that so many things are ongoing and in place at a multilateral level, like AUKUS, for example. There, you got me to say it. That these things would continue regardless of the political leadership at the top. You know, one thing, I mean, we all saw from a U.S. perspective, in a world that went from an Obama administration to a Trump administration, then a Trump administration to a Biden administration, we saw some very significant changes in political rhetoric. But if you look particularly at the practice of U.S. diplomacy and security cooperation, not that much changed from administration to administration. And that's because we've built, these things are almost institutions unto themselves. They are not easily undone just because we've changed the person at the top. And that is by design. That is exactly what we want. So the effort here is exactly that effort, is in some ways to politics proof. The Indo-Pacific is in some ways too important to us to be subject to the vagaries of politics. And so to some extent we're sort of politicking proof the region by building up these relationships that will take on a life of their own, that will continue the good work, even as the political pendulum may swing back and forth. That is the hope. And I think we are in a place right now with things like AUKUS, with things like the trilateral, with things like the long-standing cooperation of the U.S. in the East Asia Summit. We are in a place where there are a number of these regional institutional relationships that are moving under their own steam, and that will continue.
Thank you, sir, for reassuring us that our relationship will continue. The momentum of our relationship will continue. So now I would like to open the floor to our audience for any questions they may have for our speakers. Please do not be shy, because it's not every day that we have the opportunity to engage with our distinguished resource persons. Anyone? Yes. Please introduce yourself briefly.
Hello, I'm Bianca Reyes, and I work for the Center for Peace Education here at Miriam College, and a former colleague of Kim's and Karil's over there. So my question is, when it comes to advancing your strategies, what do you think carries more weight? Is it implementing hard power or soft power? Thank you.
Sure. I can start. Now, this is going to betray the prejudice of what I do at the embassy during the day, but I would say soft power, absolutely, and I would say for two reasons. One is the implementation of a hard power solution is always the solution of last resort. Nobody wants to start there. The easiest way not to get to that point is to have soft power that works, right? That if your diplomacy, if your government-to-government relationship, if your people-to-people relationship, if all of that is on solid foundational ground, you are in the best place you are to avoid the need for use of hard power. So I would say absolutely the soft power is the more important of those two for the larger goals, yeah.
Yep, I concur with that. Definitely soft power. I mean, I've met 2 Chevening alumni here today already. So despite the US's best efforts to steal students, we've met. Anyway, yeah, so soft power. And also, to be honest, in these days of slightly straightened budgetary times, soft power actually is cheaper as well, but can have more impact in many ways in terms of influence and the leveraging that we spoke about from the outset.
Right, soft power as well. For many reasons, for let's say 2 reasons. First one, you can build a very ambitious strategic partnership. If you don't have people to do that, it won't work. And if you are working, as we are trying to do in some countries, for 20, 30 years, you have to also prepare the leadership of both countries, and that goes with a lot of student mobility. You said that very early in the discussion, and I think it's crucial. But it goes also with a lot of exchanges. Second reason where soft power is very important for all of our embassies, it's also, to be honest, a very good source of income. France, has been the world #1 tourist destination for years. 83 millions of travelers every year, so it's a lot, and of course it drives our economy in a way, a bit of it, to be honest, but still it's very important. So that's why I think that soft power is really key, and I'll invite you all to visit France if you have not done so. Please come and visit.
Hello po, my name is Andrew Amano. I'm an intern in the Philippine Space Agency. I just want to ask, how will China adapt their foreign policy strategy in terms of our evolving Indo-Pacific strategy within the region? Like, how would they combat our very own strategy? Or like, what would you think that would happen?
Can you repeat? How would China?
How would China change or adapt their foreign policy strategy to somewhat combat what we're trying to do here?
For my part, it's very difficult to comment on China decision or leadership, so I won't comment at all, but I don't know for my colleagues.
I think that question should be addressed to Chinese representative in the future. You don't worry, we will have another forum on that.
Be careful, sometimes
yes,
they record conversation.
Ambassador Lula. Okay, Ambassador Lula will answer your question. Thank you, Amba.
Thank you so much.
I'll answer for the Chinese. Okay. No, okay. Remember I told you, unfortunately the sound system when I gave a talk, I gave my introduction is very soft. I said China has a grand strategy, right? It wants to change the value system of the whole world. What is the value system right now? Promoted by the US, the Europeans, and other like-minded people. It's based, at least for us, the Western values, they're based on transparency, rule of law, and accountability. So the Chinese now are changing that. They have launched what they call the Global Social Initiative, meaning each country is free to choose what values it wants to promote. It doesn't have to follow the established, as they call it, the Western-based system. If you notice, it had its introduction many years ago before you were born. that when at that time, I think it was Lee Kuan Yew who said that Western values are not necessarily universal values. They said that Asian values are different because in Asia, the society, the government is more important than the individual, right? In Western systems, the individual, human rights, the individual through individual's human rights is more important than, than society. That's one. So you just have to look at the global social initiative that China is promoting. If you read between the lines, what are they doing in various countries? And that's how China will combat everything that our colleagues here are doing. Okay? But let me just thank you. I hope my answer is okay, right? So it's presenting the Chinese perspective, but I'm not pro-China, just to let you know that, okay? Now, I just want to comment also. Based on the comments here, I hope that when you engage the Philippines, you focus on our institutions. You build our people, the bureaucracy. Because right now, China is trying to change those. First, it has fielded already pro-China candidates in the local politics. Right? The mayors, if you noticed, they're becoming more pro-China.
Yeah.
The governors, you just have to look at Governor, is it Mamba, of Cagayan? He's very pro-China. He was the one who protested against the EDCA sites. And look at the Pogo hearing of Governor Guo. And if you notice, the family name is Chinese, right? So we have a lot of Filipino-Chinese or Chinese Filipinos. And I think they're being fielded in the local elections. I've been reading a lot of people, even among congressmen. I mean, I'm not saying that they're less nationalistic or less loyal to the Philippines, but once you get into what I call dark money in politics, that's one way to weaken the Philippines. So I hope our colleagues from Europe will always be conscious of that. And then second, for Dr. Grudge, some of us in the Philippines were never into ASEAN because just like me, I know this is I'll now make it not a secret anymore. I never believed in ASEAN. In all my 37 years in the foreign service, I avoided ASEAN. Because for one thing, we are not one. We have different religions, we have different political systems, we have different languages, and I think we have different ideologies. In fact, we are the odd man out in ASEAN. They're all very Asian, the Filipino is not. And if you look at our location in the world of ASEAN, we are the only ones not attached to any country. We're floating in space. That's why I keep on telling people, we are not Asians, we are Pacific. Okay, that's it, thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Lula, for the advice.
All right.
Yes, Vince. Please introduce yourself and your affiliation. Thank you.
I just want to seek your pardon. May I leave now? Okay. Sige, thank you.
Thank you
I'm sorry
for
I
your
cannot say
time,
goodbye
Amba.
properly. I have another meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Vince Andre Isabelion from the National Defense College of the Philippines. I am a defense research officer too, and concurrently, I am also a graduating student here in the International Studies Department graduate program. So my question is actually in contrast with Ms. Bianca's question. Indo-Pacific strategies aside, what is the future of defense partnerships, or what we may call hard power? What is the future of defense partnerships of UK and France with the Philippines? I believe on the France side, you've mentioned, sir, regarding submitting the letter of intent, and there will be long talks regarding VFA. So with that in mind, what is the future of defense partnerships? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief to answer to your question. If you are positive, and we have to be, otherwise we would have chosen another job. I think more and more interaction, I guess, and more agreements and more successful visit in both sense. So this is what I can wish for, and I hope that it will happen thanks to our really hard work with our Filipino colleagues. But yes, so it's very new, to be honest. Again, we haven't been investing a lot in the Philippines for a long time because we had to develop other partnership in the region. And as you said, I mean, as you have heard also, the last administration was not very open to that. So we have seized the momentum last year to develop that relation. It's it's too soon to say where we're going, but at least there is political will. And in our field in diplomacy, we always say that when there is political will, there is a path. So we are trying to determine where it goes. So it's very difficult to answer concretely to your question, but yes, we have some stones, and we have to build something out of it.
So from the UK's perspective, I think our defence relationship is probably even newer. We only had a defence attaché at the embassy in the last 2 years, I guess, after a gap of about 16 years, I think. So sort of building up those relationships is quite new on the defence side. The Defence Cooperation MOU was signed in January this year, and there is discussion about trying to negotiate as soon as possible a visiting forces agreement as well. So it's developing, but still in very early stages. But the similar aspirations really for longer term engagement.
That was strictly for them.
Okay. So we can accommodate one more question from our participants. Yes.
Hello, good afternoon. I am Zara May Kobakub, a third-year international studies student, and I'm also under Ms. Jonah's class. I actually major in gender and development studies. So I would like to ask, since the forum highlights the need for bilateral and multilateral cooperation, specifically in the Indo-Pacific region, I am wondering, aside from the strategies you have mentioned, what are the measures being taken to ensure that women from diverse backgrounds have equal opportunities to contribute to shaping strategic partnerships? And how do you think can the international cooperation and collaboration be leveraged to promote the inclusion of women in policy making within the context of evolving Indo-Pacific geopolitics? Thank you.
Thank you for your important question. Let's address that question first to the only Rose among our panelists.
Okay, so this is an area I don't have a lot of detail with me on, but I do know that the sort of gender issue is of increasing importance to the UK. Sort of under the development white paper, which was launched quite recently, then gender is a huge focus on that, and we have only just yesterday, I think, been given instruction to kind of review our programming generally to kind of make sure that gender is key within that. The embassy already does a huge amount of work in terms of sort of on our defence side. We have a female defence attaché, for example, and she is doing a lot of work to try and promote sort of women peace and security agenda. And also in our counter-terrorism team, they work a lot with the PNP to try and promote, again, sort of gender recognition and encouraging women to get, you know, in higher positions in those sort of circles too. So very much on the UK's radar, and the work that we are doing a lot of already. As I say, I don't have enough detail to be able to give more detail than that, but to assure you that is definitely part of our wider policies.
So first I have to get this exactly right because my wife is a women, peace, and security expert, albeit one who works on a different region, and if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to hear about it. Here's what I would say. I think I think probably all of our embassies recognize the importance of the issue that you've just described. It's important to realize at the end of the day, there's a limit to what a country can do from the outside to affect opportunities within another society. So there's going to be a limit to what the US or any of our countries can do to significantly increase opportunities or shift the gender balance within Philippine institutions or Philippine societies. The good news here is I think that gender balance is better in the Philippines than in a lot of other places in the region, but there's still going to be limits. So what can we do? I think what we can do, and Kim just described some of it, is what we do is build questions of gender equity and gender opportunity into our own policies, and then using those policies create opportunities for success for Filipinas, for example. So for example, our exchange programs on security often have gender dimensions to them. We will have a Women, Peace, and Security exchange program. That will mean that we are building the capacity of participants, of Philippine participants in that program. What is done with that capacity, what can happen for those program participants once they return to the Philippines, that's going to be beyond the power of the United States or any outside country to dictate. But we can help build those skills, help create that expertise in the hopes that what it helps create back home is opportunities for the participants, and that then in turn creates a more equitable society and culture. But, and that is what we do. Whether it's in exchange programs, whether it's in the way we engage in the field, what have you. But again, at the end of the day, I think we can create opportunities, but it becomes down to an individual society to really create the paths beyond that for real change.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. I deeply believe on what you said, both of you. My point of view on that is, I can describe what we have done within the ministry for several years. We have what we call the diplomacy féministe in good French, but it's good because you can understand it even with English. And the aim of it is, first of all, change the leadership of our ministry, because for years, diplomats and especially ambassadors have been quite exclusively male, and we are changing this trend. From my experience in Manila, I had the chance to serve with 2 female ambassadors. So, and this trend is going to be increased. We have the objective to have 50% of female ambassadors, which will be a good result if we manage to do so. But again, there's a lot of work. It also implies that we are very careful of giving all opportunities to female co-workers within the network of our embassies, but also in the ministry. Giving all the same chances for women to grow as men. So for talented women, they have a very special program to be able to really break the ceiling glass when it comes to discrimination. And we are still facing, even in our society, those kind of discrimination. So we are really committed to do more within the ministry. Outside of the ministry, it's really through our cooperation and development programs that we are trying to find solutions or contribute in a way. So it goes without saying that sexual rights are very important. When it comes to prevention of sexual disease, of course, that is part of what our Agency for Development is trying to develop. So we are doing a lot of that. And to be more specific and to speak about the Philippines, for example, we have a very small project in Bangsamoro, which helps women women farmers in a way to develop their own product, and we have developed it through this program, a cooperative and network of women who are selling their product. It's it's a small project, but it tells you about our way to promote this ideal. And one last topic, which is difficult, but we have also presented a reform, the reform of our constitution. You know that we have enshrined the right of abortion in our constitution, and we have also explained why we have done so. It's not a way of promoting this, but just to explain to the world why the French society has decided to do so. So this is what we have done so far in this very important field.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our panel discussion. Thank you to our esteemed panelists for providing us with your valuable insights into your diverse Indo-Pacific strategies. So the evolving geopolitical landscape of the Indo-Pacific presents both opportunities and challenges for the Philippines and the broader Indo-Pacific region. By fostering a deep understanding of these strategies and their implications, we can better navigate this complex environment and work towards a more stable, prosperous, and cooperative Indo-Pacific. So once again, thank you to our distinguished diplomats for your contributions.
Once again, let's give them a round of applause. And I think one of the biggest bottom line that we've learned from the discussion is that despite coming from different countries, different perspective, we have a shared goal, which is ensuring a free and open Indo-Pacific. So now to further synthesize and conclude the discussion that we had earlier, may I call on Ms. Justine Beato. She is a postgraduate student of Miriam College to provide us her synthesis.
Once again, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank our guest research speakers, Mr. Remy Tizulvayan, Dr. John Groch, and Ms. Kim Clark, for that very enriching conversation on the evolving politics in the Indo-Pacific. For our forum is very timely, as Ambassador Del Rosario has mentioned. The topic of the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea is very prevalent in our political environment right now. Our discussion with the Indo-Pacific representatives provided an in-depth analysis of the diverse strategies shaping the dynamic region, highlighting their implications for the Indo-Pacific security, prosperity, and regional stability. We explored on how almost similar but still unique approaches of each countries can harmonize to address shared challenges, enhancing cooperative security measure and fostering economic growth. This conversation underscored the importance of coordinated efforts and potential for these strategies to complement each other's, promoting stable and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. Mr. Remy emphasized the interconnectedness of trade and defense security with the Philippines for France. He also introduced strategies focused on maritime activities and preservation of ocean biodiversity. Dr. Groch outlined the Indo-Pacific strategy of the United States, detailing 5 key objectives, which is advancing a free and open Indo-Pacific, building connectedness within beyond the region, and driving regional prosperity and bolstering Indo-Pacific security, enhancing regional resilience through transnational threats through military exercises. And Ms. Clark outlines UK's Indo-Pacific strategy, which is centered on responding to an increasing and contested volatile global environment. Their strategy aims to address the growing geopolitical tensions and ensuring economic stability. Following our discussion, we unanimously agree on the importance of an Indo-Pacific strategy that ensures the region remains open and inclusive, free from all forms of coercion, and grounded in multilateralism and respect for international law. Today's dialogue has highlighted various sectors for development and cooperation, paving the way for a more stable and prosperous future for the region. We discussed the significance of military exercises and strategic partnerships such as Balikatan and AUKUS, highlighting their roles in enhancing regional security and cooperation. We also discussed the expanding collaboration within private economic sector through research and investments that are vital for the region's economic stability. We also delve into the utilization of soft power as strategic approach to address the current challenges and foster positive relationship within the region. We also discussed the initiatives focused on equity and equality, women's empowerment, and advancing social progress in the region. We are gathered as like-minded nations with the goal of collectively advancing in the economic and security sector. Through this conversation, we gain valuable insights into the diverse agendas of Indo-Pacific countries and how this can benefit the Philippines. This forum has highlighted the potential deeper collaboration and mutual support, fostering a greater understanding for our shared goals. We hope that these dialogues will continue to strengthen our diplomatic ties with the Indo-Pacific region, promoting stability, security, and prosperity for all involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Justin, for that. It is indeed that we had a very fruitful discussion this afternoon. And now, as we move on to the end of this event, may I call on the Graduate Program Coordinator of the International Studies Department, Ms. Lorna Israel, along with Captain Caroline Nacional from Women's Alliance for Peace, for Security and Peace, to present the token and certificate of appreciation to our speakers. So may I call on stage Ms. Lorna and Ms. Caroline. And also, may I call on our speakers back on stage to receive our tokens and certificate. I think. So the certificate of appreciation is awarded to His Excellency Remy Tivan, Dr. John Groch, and Councillor Kim Clark for rendering an invaluable contribution as resource speaker during the evolving geopolitics in the Indo-Pacific region, implications of diverse Indo-Pacific strategy for the Philippines and Regional Order Forum, held on the 7th day of May 2024 at the Little Theater, Miriam College. Given this day, 7th day of May 2024 at Miriam College, Loyola Heights, Quezon City. Signed by Jonaline Villasante, Senior Lecturer, Melanie Reyes, Chairperson of the International Studies Department, and Lorna Israel, Graduate Program Coordinator of the International Studies Department. And now may I invite all the three speakers at the center of the stage for one last photo taking. Yes, please. For last photo picture taking. Thank you very much. Once again, a heartfelt thanks to our speakers, Mr. Remy Tiovarani of French Embassy, Dr. John Groch of U.S. Embassy, and Ms. Kim Clark from the British Embassy. Yes, you may take a seat. You may take a seat in front. Yes, it's very hot here in front. And I would also like to express our deepest gratitude to the International Studies Department, Women's Alliance for Security and Peace, and to the International Studies Society. And at this point, before we officially conclude our forum, may I call on stage once again the graduate program coordinator of the International Studies Department, Ms. Lorna Israel, to give us her closing remarks.
We draw to a close. We're still having technical glitches. Part of our life, part of our evolving life. Yeah? All right, so as our forum draw to a close, I'd like to extend our warmest thanks to each one of you for your active participation and insightful contributions. Why not give all of us a big hand of applause? Indeed, the geopolitical landscape of the Indo-Pacific region continues to evolve. It presents both challenges and opportunities, and forums like this provide us with the opportunity to also evolve our collective understanding and strategize effectively for the future that is probably tilting towards multipolarity, greatly reliant on the use of soft power. But this will probably take another forum, Ms. Jonah, right? Somewhere. So it is vital that the Indo-Pacific region attain a cohesive rather than a diverse strategy, but adaptive. For the Philippines, this probably means balancing national interest with regional responsibilities, enhancing diplomatic ties, and investing in robust defense and economic policies. For the region, it emphasizes the importance of unity and collaborative frameworks to ensure peace, stability, and prosperity that is not probably measured only in terms of dollars. And I would like now to thank our distinguished speakers. Again, let's give them a big, big hand for this wonderful and fun but insightful afternoon. Our speakers for sharing their expertise and perspective. Your contributions have been invaluable and enriching. And also, I'd like to commend the organizer of today's forum, Ms. Jonalyn Villasante, and her graduate students, the Department of International Studies, and of course, the Women's Alliance for Security and Peace. Let us leave here with a renewed commitment to work collaboratively towards a peaceful, stable, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. Thank you very much, and we look forward to a continuing engagement with all of you. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat.
Thank you very much, Lorna. It is indeed that we are continuously evolving. It is onto us whether to adapt it, and it is onto us to ensure that our future is indeed open and sustainable for all of us. So before we proceed to our last picture taking with everyone, with the audience as well, may I request everyone to answer the evaluation form to be sent on your respective email addresses to receive a certificate of attendance for today. And I would also like to take this opportunity to invite everyone to the following upcoming webinars of the graduate program and the remaining events of our IS month. It is the 55th anniversary of the Maryknoll Miriam College International Studies. So there are a few upcoming events, so please stay tuned on the Facebook page of the International Studies Society. So now let's proceed to our final picture taking this afternoon. So my request our speaker to not come up on stage anymore, but just to stand up and stand up in front of the stage there at the floor, not on the floor, but there downstairs. And also, I invite our participants to go in front as well in an orderly manner. So I invite everyone to compress at the center for quick photo taking. Yes, that's compressed. Thank you very much. Again, we extend our sincerest appreciation to our speakers and to our participants this afternoon. Additionally, yes, and we do have refreshments for everyone outside at the foyer, so you may get your snacks there. For our speakers, we've reserved your snacks and we'll be providing them. Yes, po. And may I request for all the graduate students of the International Studies to proceed in front. Again, may I request our graduate students to proceed in front for a quick photo taking. Mamaya. Alis na. Yes, there will be refreshments at the foyer, so you may claim your food there. For our graduate students, please come up in front for a quick photo taking. Come up on stage. And mamaya na lang. Tayo na lang muna. Okay, sige. Pero kasi hindi, kasama yung speaker. Di ba? Okay, miss. Sure. Nice to meet you finally. Opo, opo. Lagi akong late. Lagi akong absent, kundi absent late daw. Buti nakatapos pa.
Yeah, kilala niyo na ba yung ating department chair? Si Miss Mel Reyes.